All right, you guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we're going to be working on this beautiful 2019 Mustang GT S550. It's going to be getting the full lineup from our friends over at Whiteline. They provided us with a 30mm front sway bar, 25mm rear sway bar, as well as their lowering springs, which means we're getting rid of the wheel gap on this monster truck, and it's going to perform and grip so much better. Now, the biggest thing is going to be that these guys have specialized in all of their suspension setups. We really do like working with Whiteline because all of their products are at an affordable price, and they're also extremely high quality, making fitment easy and making the results really stand out. Now, on the lowering springs, these front lowering springs are going to drop at 35mm, which is about 1.37 inches. The rear is going to drop at about 30, which is going to be about 1.14 inches in the rear. So it's going to get rid of just over 1.25 inches front and rear of the wheel gap for you guys to be able to really lower this vehicle and give it a better lower center of gravity there. We're also going to be installing these front and rear sway bars. This is going to help with traction, handling, and everything between. It's going to kind of stiffen up that steering response and give more of a raw driving feel, as well as a more controlled driving feel at the same time. So we're going to pass this over to Jonah. He's going to go through the install process, get you guys shown how to be able to install this on your Mustang GT. And of course, we do offer these for both MagneRide and non-MagneRide suspension setups. So make sure you guys reach out to us for a quote on these. We can absolutely help you out with pricing and make sure that you are getting the best bang for your buck when it comes to suspension on your Ford Mustang.
All right, so first things first, we're gonna start with taking the bracket that holds the brake line onto the sway bar, and then these two 18mm nuts to get your end link off. Just like that. The end link comes out, and we're gonna go over to the other side and do the exact same thing. So to make our lives a little bit easier, I'm gonna remove the tips on both sides just to get this back bolt that holds the sway bar in place. Rusty. So now that we have that out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and take these two 13mm bolts out that hold the sway bar to the subframe. Just like that, the sway bar comes out. So now that we are onto the rear springs, there's really two ways you can do this. One way being you can remove this whole bottom arm that holds the spring in, or the way I'm gonna do it is you can take the two subframe bolts out and have the subframe supported with a jack, just lower it down a little bit, enough to pop the spring out, and that should be the easier way, but there's technically two ways to do it, so. That might be the easier way. I don't know, that's the way I'm gonna do it. But if you take the subframe bolts out and just drop it down a little bit, you can kind of force it out, wiggle it out. All right, so once you have the old spring out, you're gonna have two rubber pieces. This thicker rubber piece, it's gonna sit at the top, just like where it was on the old spring. And then the thinner one, it's gonna sit right down in the bucket, just like the old spring did. You just wanna transfer them over to the new ones. So as I was saying before, on these little rubber pieces that go on the top and bottom of your spring, you're gonna have a stop right here. And basically what you wanna do is you just wanna make sure that the edge of the spring is up against that, so you know they're in the right position and they're not going anywhere and they're gonna fit properly. So now we have the springs in their place. They're fitted how they're supposed to be, and we have the subframe back up to the car. We'll go through and torque those bolts later. For now, we're gonna get the shocks back in and then move on to putting the sway bar back in. So now that we got the rear springs all in, we're gonna go ahead and start installing the sway bar. I already have the bushings on. They go on the outside of these little stops here. And yeah, now we'll go ahead and throw it up there. So now that we have the sway bar on and in place, we're gonna leave it loose a little bit so there's some play to it and focus on getting the end links on. On the stock one, you have this bracket here that clips onto the brake line and bolts onto the sway bar. You get these ones in the Whiteline kit that you just thread through. You're gonna take your end link, put a washer on, and we are going to be using the hole that is the furthest back on the sway bar for the most amount of stiffness. If you want it less stiff, go to the front. The middle one is kind of in between. Then you're going to grab 2 more washers. One on the bottom right here, and the nut. And then you get your brake line bracket. Slide that in place. Put your washer on, get your nut on, then tighten that all down. Solid. Yeah, brother, that has got to be the way. So now that the rear end links are on, I'm gonna go through and center this sway bar. So now that we have the rear sway bar bolted down and in place, we went ahead and got the mufflers put back on. And you will have to do some adjustments with the end links to make sure that there is no preload on the sway bar. But when you do that, you want to make sure that the weight of the car is on the suspension, so the suspension's fully loaded, typically like on a 4-post or something like that. But we will do that once everything is all said and done. But now that we have that, we're going to go ahead and move up to the front and start working on the springs and the sway bar up there. So now that we're done in the rear, we're gonna come up to the front and get the strut assembly out so we can get the lowering spring in. what you're gonna wanna do is take off the sway bar right here with a 18 millimeter nut, and you're gonna have two 24 millimeter nuts that hold the strut to the knuckle. You're gonna wanna take those out, and before you take those out, unclip the wheel speed sensor, and there's a 10 millimeter on the back that holds the wheel speed in to the knuckle. And once you have that out, it should just drop down and you're able to take it out. All right, so now that we have the bolts that hold the knuckle to the strut out, I wanted to let you guys know that these are kind of a pain to get out. You're gonna have to hammer them, specifically because they have these splines on them that are gonna kind of hold it into the knuckle. Yeah, your best bet would be just to hammer them out. Just be careful. Now that that's out, we're gonna move on to the top half of the car and get these 3 nuts out right here. And they're 15 millimeters, and once those are out, the strut will just drop from the body. All right, let's go do the same on the other side. So now that we have the struts out, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the sway bar. Not required to remove the struts to get the sway bar out, but just because they are, it gives me a little more room and it's gonna make it a little easier. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go from the top and get a long set of extensions and an 18 mil, and you'll be able to access the bolts from up top. All right, so for the back bolts of the sway bar, you're gonna use an 18 millimeter wrench. They're just right here. The front ones that we got earlier are just right over there. So as you can see, the frame kind of blocks you, so you gotta get them from the top. All right, so once you have the bolts that hold the sway bar to the subframe or the frame, you're gonna wanna, I think it's easier to come over to the driver's side, and you kind of just gotta keep angling it back and forth. And once you get to a certain point, kind of just slides on out. Like that. It's kind of a pain. It helps if you have an extra set of hands. But now that it's out, you kind of just got to angle it. And like I said, I think it's easier to go through the driver's side. And to install it, you're going to go the same way. All right, now that we got the sway bar out of the car, this is the orientation of it. The left side of me is going to be the driver. The right side is going to be the passenger. And I'm going to just slide it in the exact same way as I took the old one out. Now that is in, we are gonna go grab the bushings and grease them up and put them on. All right, so once you're ready to put your bushings in, I take some of this, they send some high temp grease. I just put a little bit on my fingers because they really can't get any dirtier. Just a little bit for each one. Just rub it around on the inside. Less is more when it comes to grease too. You don't need a whole ton. Just a little bit to thinly coat the inside. Then we're gonna go slide these on. I also did do the exact same process for the rear. Just a little bit of grease on the inside. I think we forgot to mention that. But yeah, like I said, less is more. Just needs a little bit on the inside. Gonna go do the same on the other side as well. So now that we got the struts out, sway bar in place, we're gonna go ahead and compress this spring and separate the top hat from the actual body. We're gonna use this machine here. If you're doing this at home, you can rent, you know, a tool from AutoZone or O'Reilly's, wherever it is, just a strut spring compressor tool. If you are doing it at home, just make sure you're careful because it is a compressed spring, and if you don't do it right or something slips, it could be kind of scary. So, but yeah, we'll go ahead and get this off now. Come here, bud. You can grab my socket. You want to stand over here and zip it off, buddy? Gah! Gah! Almost out. God save us. Shit, man. It's terrifying. Thank you. A little bit scary, but it's all right. Make sure you uncompress it, decompress it, whatever it is. Now that the live grenade has been disarmed, you're gonna get your new spring. Same deal as the rear. You're gonna have a little like bump stop kinda right here. You wanna make sure the edge of the spring sitting up against it, and the front one, not really a stop, but you'll see where the old spring went. Whenever I do lowering springs, I just try to line it up with the old one. That way you know it's right. You don't have to second guess yourself. Nope. Okay, so these ones are directional. Just like that. Now this part is a little bit sketchy. Typically what I do is I give it tension. So I let the spring come up a little bit. Once the spring's up, you can and just like that, you got your new lowering springs on. Now let's go put these in the car. All right, we're gonna go ahead and put these struts in and bolt them all back together, and then we'll go ahead and get the sway bar tight and the end links and everything on. Now that we got the struts back in, we're gonna throw the front end links in. Keep in mind, we do still have the sway bar loose. We just have the bolts in place to hold it in the right place. On this car, I don't know if I mentioned, but it does have an ESS supercharger kit on it. So we are going to be using the hole that is the furthest back, this one right here. That'll give you the maximum stiffness. So yeah, let's put these in. Same deal as the rear, you want a washer on each side. But we're gonna get a 19 millimeter and snug these down. And then we'll go and tighten the sway bar and adjust it to where it needs to be. All right, so now that we got the sway bar end links all tight, Whiteline provides these anti-sway locking collars. Once you have your sway bar in the right position, which basically you just want it to be as center as it can be, you're just gonna slide these over, push it up against the bushing, then just get the bolts in and get it tight.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
All right, so now that we have everything tightened down, you're gonna wanna get the wheels back on and get the suspension loaded. We're gonna go make the final adjustments to the end links. We'll get some clips and show you how it sits and all that. All right, so now that you're underneath the car, the suspension's loaded, what you wanna do is make sure there's no preload on the sway bar. So how you do that is if you turn it one way, and you feel the tension, you want to turn it back until you feel tension, and there should be a sweet spot right in the middle. And then you have two jam nuts, one on top, one on bottom. Bring it down, and they'll be 17 millimeters, and you want to tighten those down.
later.
All right, you guys, so we have officially activated grip on this S550 Mustang using the full Whiteline catalog for the suspension. And I gotta say that this thing sits so much better. Again, this is gonna drop about 1.25 inches, both front and rear, but it is going to help this ESS Supercharged Mustang GT really connect on the roads. If you're looking for a kit for your Mustang, whether it's an S650, S550, S197, with or without MagneRide, go ahead, hit us up. Let us give you guys the best deal on Whiteline products, so that way you can put all your power to the ground and through the canyons. Make sure you guys are following, like, subscribe, and leave us a comment letting us know what kind of content you're wanting to see, and we'll get you taken care of.